Hi and welcome to, this is another thing that I don't know what I'm doing until I've made up my mind what it is. And I still don't know what it is. We still do the little thing at the end that I've stolen from Steve Bartlett's Diary of a CEO, and that is the last person to actually do this was Barry Me, and he's written a question for the next person. That happens to be Warren. And when we finish this, Warren will read the question, answer it, and then write a question for the next person, and I don't know what it is, and that's how I like it. And we don't know who the next person's going to be. So it's sort of it's a very interesting way to move forward, and I think some of the questions have been quite good. So this is Warren Millar. I'm dyslexic, so when we first met, he corrected me a million times about how I spelt his name.
Yeah.
But it turns out everyone spells his name wrong, so I must be privileged because I'm dyslexic and get it wrong. And we first met, I think I bought a Nikon D200 off you, and I came to your studio in Widnes.
You did indeed. Yeah, I had a studio in Widnes, just off Liverpool Road in Widnes there, and I can't even remember where I advertised this D200, but you saw it answered and came over to the.
It was a friend of a friend of yours.
Was it?
One of the ladies that does photography said you had one wedding photographer, Andrea
Ellison.
That's it.
Yeah, probably was. Yeah, because
she came from the past.
Yeah, she came to my studio a few times for lighting tips and stuff. So yeah, it's probably Andrea. Yeah, did she swear a lot? Because that'd be
yeah. Too fucking much. No, she's quite a personality, isn't she?
Yeah. So that's basically where we first met. You came to the studio, had a quick look over the camera, bought the camera off me. I've still got a D200 at home actually as well.
The funny thing was, I always remember is I didn't know much about you until that day, and then when I came to your studio, you had some black and white images on the wall, and I was really impressed with the prints that you had on the wall. And I think from that on, I don't even know how it happened. I think there was another event with the studio that we both went to, maybe.
Yes, maybe so.
And then I think we sort of slowly became friends after that.
I can't remember, but yeah, well, as you know, I've always been into black and white photography and printing black and white images, and I know you were too at the time. So I think that's where we gelled, basically.
I think you're right. Black and white the love of black and white photography.
And old film photography as well.
Yeah. Which is where we both have a background, and a lot of people these days
don't. And I think, if I remember rightly, that's why you were buying the D200 off me, because it produced some really good black and white images.
The irony is it had a Fujifilm sensor.
Ah, right. That's probably why.
It had a Fujifilm sensor, and it produced, which is almost the same sensor that went in the X100.
Yeah.
But the sensor before that, and then Nikon put a Sony sensor in following that. And so I was always looking for the camera that would produce the best black and white images when printed.
I remember you saying that you wanted it purely for black and white images. In fact, the D200 I've still got at home, I used about a year ago at a protest thing I was covering in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Purely for black and white images. Purely because I knew it produced really good.
I think the funny thing is, it's got a grain to it.
Yeah.
When you print it, it looks like that old film look without adding anything to it. Really, it just produces those.
Yeah, it's still is a really nice camera.
So, do you miss the studio?
I do miss the studio. I have times when I wish I was back in the studio, having total control over the lighting that I'm doing, because that's what studio photography is all about. You control the lighting. You know what you want, so you control the lighting. What I do now, I've got no control over lighting whatsoever. Gig photography, no control whatsoever over lighting. So I do miss it every now and then. I don't miss the bills having to be paid, the rent having to be paid and stuff like that, which would be a nightmare at this time. It was a struggle at the time, but I had it for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I loved it at the time.
I think photography's done for everyone. There's been a complete thing with photography over the years, which is a roller coaster ride for everyone. And when it takes a dive, it takes a dive. No one wants it done. And then we've got I can't think, is it called the millennial thing now, where everyone just gets their friend with a iPhone to take their pictures at their weddings, so they don't think they need a professional photographer. So it's
the technology has moved on so much. What with phones and stuff like that, that I don't know whether it's gone too far or not. I'm not too sure. But quality will always outclass anything else anyway. So
I think sometimes people, I have spoken to a few people, when you've got the likes of Kevin Mullins and the Lee Glasgows of like photography. I know Lee's moving away from photography, but when you've got people that can do really, really good work, I think if you I'd always hire a wedding photographer
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do my wedding.
Yeah.
If I ever get married, that is. Still waiting for Jane.
I'll buy the hat.
Because yes, you can take reasonably good photographs with an iPhone. Yes, you can take reasonably good photographs as an amateur photographer. Some amateur photographers are brilliant anyway. But if you want someone to capture your day and capture it properly, you pay for a professional. If you want, it's funny, we were just talking about this. If you want I've looked at a lot of stuff online and Instagram and everything, and all this Instagram stuff of everyone taking really bad photographs of themselves and putting them online and becoming Instagram famous because they've managed to use some algorithms, doesn't win over the class of brilliant photography by brilliant photographers.
No, it doesn't.
The same as studio work and everything else by professional.
No, it doesn't. And the stuff I do now, gig photography, it's exactly the same in that sort of situation as well. Because you get some gig photographers who are absolutely brilliant in what they do. They know where they want to be. They know what image they want to capture, and they're trying to get over what it was like to be at a gig, basically. Whereas you get others, and the bands, some of the bands as well, think that some of the photographs are absolutely brilliant, and I'm looking at them and thinking, nah, it's not that good, really. So it is, you know what you're after as being in this game for as long as we've been in it. You know what you're after. You get your own certain style, and that's what you're after all the time.
It's called something, isn't it? Something syndrome, when someone thinks they know everything about something. And yet when they actually then learn all about it, they realise they know nothing. And photography is one of the biggest ones. Someone I can't remember what it's called now. I'll think of it later.
I always say, in photography, once you think you know everything, that's the time to quit, because you never know. You're learning all the time.
I think it was, I don't know, a long time ago when we first met, I got into a bit of a thing with this guy online, and he was basically telling me I didn't know what I talked about. And he said, no, that's wrong. There's nothing in that portrait that you can see. You're talking rubbish about this photography. You're talking rubbish about that photographer. And I said, mate, your horizon on your face, your header on Facebook isn't even straight. All the photographs you've got, all your horizons are wonky. This is wrong, that's wrong. If you can't even see that about your own work, how can you see anything in anyone else's work? And to actually fully understand photography, and it's like Steve McCurry's photograph of the Afghan girl. Everyone thinks it's a good photograph just because of the way he photographed it, but the way he used the colours and the colour wheel and everything on that particular girl, there's incredible amount of skill gone into that photograph.
There's a lot more than just an image on the wall.
Yeah.
There's what goes behind that image, the thought process that goes behind
years sometimes of learning.
And now that I'm doing a lot of gig photography, that thought process has got to be so much quicker. Me getting older doesn't help. But that thought process has got to be so much quicker. Whereas you were on about the studio before, I had time to think about the lighting, I had time to set the lighting up. With gig photography, you're working on the hoof most of the time. So it's a thought process that's got to be really quick, and then you only get the first 3 songs anyway. So they have got to be really quick, and that's what I like about what I'm doing now.
Do you want me to ask that one? I don't think it's relevant. What do you do for a living?
But you can do it.
What do you do for a living now? I know you've left the studio and you're still doing gig photography, but
I do photography sort of part time now. I don't I'm not getting paid full time for it. I actually work part time in a pets at home local pet shop, but I only do.
Well, you love animals anyway.
I love animals anyway. I've just been having a cuddle with Jake. So, I love animals anyway. So that's
works together.
It works together. I only work part time. I get enough time off to do the gigs that I want to do, and
which is the important thing.
Which is the important thing for me. And I shoot now for All Music magazine, which is an American-based magazine, but a good friend of mine has just opened the European part of it, and it's a great magazine.
I think it was one of the hardest things. You've done it the opposite way around to other people, and you obviously will come on to that in a minute. But you've done a lot of photography in your life, but a lot of people get a full-time job, then start doing photography, which then, in my opinion, reduces the amount of photography there is for photographers, and then they drop in and drop out of that. But the way, if you're going to become a professional photographer, that's fine as long as you do the work and then drop the main job and go off and do it. Well, you've done it a different way round. You've moved from the studio to doing part-time work to keep yourself going, but carried on with the photography. So I think that's brilliant. Did you always do what you're doing now, or did you do something before?
No, it's funny you were on about being a professional photographer. So in a way, for 30 odd years, I was a professional photographer because I was a police photographer for 30 odd years. Photography, forensics, and fingerprints. So yeah, I can.
Not so many models that were alive then.
No, and they kept still, which was good most of them. But yeah, so
you could pose them.
Yeah,
maybe
well,
not.
Maybe not. No. But so yeah, I can probably say I've photographed scenes that most people wouldn't see in a lifetime. Murder scenes. That
would be quite difficult anyway, wouldn't it? Some buildings that you go in, they're probably quite a mess to be able to get a good quality photograph in a murder scene. Probably not.
I think that's where my skills sort of developed, because it was an intense training for the police to become a police photographer. You did 9 weeks.
Was it filming those days as well?
It was filming those days, yeah. So we did 9 weeks up at a place called Crook in Durham, which was the Centre of Excellence for training scenes of crime officers, as they were called in those days. It's CSIs now. So we did an intense 9 weeks up in Durham, and it's just full on. I think someone was saying it's the equivalent of doing a degree in photography in 9 weeks. So it was really full on, and I think that's where I really got the thirst for moving on and knowledge about photography, because we were going out doing exercises during the day and then spending the whole night in the dark rooms developing the film and getting the prints. So yeah, I think that's where the big love of photography came from me as well.
And doing black and white. Was it black and white?
Black and white.
Yeah.
When I first started with Cheshire Police, it was all black and white. I think it was FP4, Ilford FP4, Nikon FMs, and it was all black and white unless it was a murder. Then we could use colour film. They allowed us to use colour film, which is a bit strange.
Couldn't colour it in.
Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies or pastimes?
Yeah, I have quite a few. I like to keep myself reasonably fit. So I used to be a competitive cyclist when I was mid-20s, early mid-20s. So I don't do as much now, which we'll get onto later. So I do a lot of cycling. I've recently taken up golf again, which I really enjoy. They describe it as a good walk spoilt, really, which is quite true. And if you know how I play golf, anyway. Took up golf. I play the guitar very badly. Other than that, just animals. I love animals as well. I can't think of any other hobbies that I have.
You've still got. Someone said to me the other day, I had an interview the other day for something, and someone said, "What hobbies have you got?" I went through a few like you, and like the person went, "Oh well, that's quite a lot," and you think, "Well, is it?" And some people don't have any at all, do they? So I suppose, this is a bit of, how old are you? I've never asked you that.
I am actually 61.
Fucking hell! I didn't know that. Well, I thought you were a lot younger than that. So
61.
Because I've been doing this, it's a bit of a strange question to ask you, because I know sort of the answers. But do you think about retirement, or have you thought about retirement, or made any retirement plans?
Retirement to me is, I don't really think about it. If it was to be totally honest with myself, I don't really think about it, because I see retirement as another part of your life. I don't think a lot of people, when they come to retirement, that's it, mate, stopped, and
die.
Yeah, and that's all you do. So retirement is another carry on of. I'm a bit of a workaholic. I like to keep busy all the time. So retirement to me, although I do think about it, I think about it as a future that I'll still be working.
Right.
I'll still be doing stuff I want to do. But I'll be working and doing stuff I want to do, not necessarily getting paid for it or anything like that, but just enjoying what I do. Yeah. But not stopping.
I don't think you can. I mean, I've spoken about it with Barry and all different people, including the way things are going with me at the moment. But one of the hardest things for me after my stroke was coming to terms with not doing anything for a while. Yeah. It was like, you know what I work like. My work was like to go from the mental chaos of what I used to do down to you're not allowed out of the house, and you can't do anything, you can't lift anything, you're not, stay still on that sofa now.
I know exactly.
Oh my God, it was just like the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and like Netflix in a way saved me at the time, but then it gets to the point now where I am getting to the point where I hate having to watch things on TV at home, and I just wanted, but which we'll come on to with you as well in a minute, but because my main thing at the moment is I take Jake out for a walk for a couple of hours in the morning, then I come home, and I'm then quite drained from it. If I do that, that's easy. If we did the Great Yorkshire Show on Wednesday, I think it was this week, and I have never been so worn out in all my life, mentally and physically. And it's quite interesting because it's around people. And Kate and Jane were saying, like, it's very busy here. And I thought, you want to be inside my head with this, do you know what I mean? But
and also the anxiety that'll come with that as well.
Huge. I know you've had a recent health scare.
Yes, 2nd of June, which was only, 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. I'll tell you the story of how it sort of built up to what happened. I had my editing suite, what I used to call my man cave, downstairs in a spare room we had alongside the living room. And both me and Jed, my partner, have recently become grandparents, so we've got coming on to 2-year-old granddaughter now. Okay, I'll have to give her a mention. So Jed decided to have that room for Oka's playroom. So I said, right, I'll move my stuff because I've got a spare room upstairs. I'll move my editing suite upstairs because I've got a bit more room up there. So I was actually moving all the computers and everything and all my pictures that were on the wall upstairs. And I was upstairs I think I was knocking some nails into the wall to hang a picture. And I just got a sudden sort of tightness around the chest. It felt like indigestion, but it was strange sort of indigestion. I thought, that's a bit strange. So I went down. Well, I didn't go downstairs first. I just thought I'll just carry on, and it sort of eased off. So I thought, I'm fine. Anyway, about 15 minutes later, it actually came back even worse, and I thought, this is not right. There's something wrong here. So I went down and told Jed, and she said, well, what's it feel like? I said, it feels like someone stood on my chest and indigestion is coming up my throat a bit. And then it eased off again. I said, oh no, I feel okay now. So I went back upstairs and carried on working. And then about 20 minutes later, it happened again, a lot more worse. I could feel pains coming down my arm, left arm as well. So I thought, I sort of had an inkling what was happening then. I went downstairs and said, Jed, I think you might have to ring an ambulance because it's come back even worse. It's going down. And Jed said to me later, when you came down that second time, you were as white as a sheet and you were sweating. So I sat on the settee. Jed rang the ambulance, told him what the symptoms were. The ambulance were there within 15 minutes, put an ECG on me. 2 ambulance people who I must thank, they were absolutely brilliant, looked at me, looked at Jed and said, yeah, he's having a heart attack. We've got to go to Broad Green straight away. And we're going on blues and twos. And it was at that time that I thought, yeah, this is quite serious, this. So luckily enough, I was in Broad Green, on the table, having a stent fitted within 2 hours, which I think is why I'm what I'm like now. I feel absolutely fine now. But yeah, a big eye opener, a really big eye opener. Yeah.
How is your health now?
My health is absolutely fine. I feel absolutely great since the stent has been fitted. No side effects from all the meds I'm on because I think I take
tablets a day.
Yeah, I keep forgetting as well. And
I'll tell you what I do. I got those. Sounds really stupid, but I got the tablet things.
I've got one, yeah.
But I put them right next to where I have my breakfast every day. As soon as I go to the kettle and make my breakfast, they're there. I see them and I take them.
Yeah.
And I very rarely miss a tablet, and it's usually because of changing routine. And so we went to the Great Yorkshire Show, we went to stay at Kate's, so I forgot to take my nighttime meds.
Yeah, it's always the nighttime ones I forget.
Yeah,
the morning ones are no problem.
And my worst ones for me is taking not because my ones are to do with acid reflux. So not taking my night meds, I will find that out about 2 o'clock in the morning.
I have one for, I don't think it's acid reflux, but I used to suffer with ulcers years and years ago. And apparently because I'm on so much aspirin now,
you have to take those,
that can cause ulcers. So I'm on something like that as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's 5 in the morning and 3 of a night.
Yeah, something like that.
But I always forget the night ones, the morning ones.
Rattly people now.
Yeah, I've got.
Who'd have thought we'd been sitting in front of a camera talking about it?
But going back to the question, I feel really great. I've done a couple of rounds of golf, 18 holes of golf, which is not too strenuous, and that's where we were on about the cycling. I used to do a lot of cycling.
Oh, so you sort of changed your hobbies a little bit after you.
So I've changed my hobbies a little bit. I haven't touched the bike since the heart attack. I'm a bit worried about doing that because I used to think nothing about doing 30, 35, 40 miles. I think that will be a bit too strenuous for me now. So that's why I took up golf.
It's a confidence thing as well. It's like heart attack, stroke. The weirdest thing in the beginning, we had this conversation when we met up soon after, and that is because it's happened and an ambulance comes in 15 minutes, or in my case it was totally different, but because it happens and an ambulance comes, for a while you feel very vulnerable because you go through life feeling very, very, I don't know what the word is, the opposite to vulnerable, and then something happens to you and suddenly you think, shit, what if I'm... Like for me, like at the time, I take my phone with me everywhere, and then one day I forgot my phone when I was out walking Jake, and I thought, and I turned around and went home because I thought I do not want to be in a wood somewhere lying on the floor having another stroke.
I think the word you was looking for, before anything like this happens, you feel invincible.
Invincible, yeah.
But then when this happens, it brings it all back on and said, well, you know, and this is what I'm saying. Going back to retirement, this is what I'm saying. You don't know when it's. You don't know when it's going to. The one thing we can be certain of in life is that you're going to die. Yeah. But you don't know when that's going to be. No. So you've got, and I was thinking exactly the same in the ambulance on the way to Broad Green with the sirens going and everything. I was thinking, geez, this could be my last trip in an ambulance. And
goes through your head, done it your whole life.
And then once you know you've been fixed, you think, I should live for every second, really.
Yeah. Which
is what I did think before that, but not as much.
No.
So now every day is a bonus.
I think sometimes having a life-changing event makes you think differently about your life, and then also it makes you plan differently and everything else. And I'm quite sure we've actually spoke about that as well. But I'm quite sure you plan a few things now that you didn't before, and
my main priorities have changed so much. My main priorities now, obviously, close friends, family, Oka, my granddaughter, who I absolutely adore, Jed, obviously my partner, all the immediate family, Adam, the son. They're the most important things to me now. Nothing else really matters, except maybe gig photography.
No, definitely gig photography.
Yeah.
Just this was a question I just threw in just now because I know we had a conversation at this before. But do you wear any tech now differently, or do you use tech now to monitor your health?
I do, yeah. I've got my Garmin watch on here. So this is actually a triathlete watch. Yeah. So you can do cycling, walking, hiking. So I do all my walks on here. I can even follow myself around the golf course. I was quite amazed the other day when I did 18 holes to realise that I'd walked 6 miles. I didn't even think it was that far around the golf course.
So we're talking about one because I got this Withings one, which takes ECG and everything else.
And
monitor whether and I think it's really clever because I was looking at getting an Apple one, and they're super bloody expensive, and you have to charge them overnight. Which is, if you're having something go wrong in the night, it's a bit funny ways of time if your watch is over there charging. Because obviously I had my stroke at night time, so it's like at least you get an idea of, and whether it works or not, I don't know. But it's always nice to have an idea. And also, you can monitor quite a lot, can't you?
Yeah,
I use a couple of apps as well.
Some of these Garmin ones do your oxygen levels as well and stuff like that. But this is just great because I can swap it from walking, hiking, cycling, whatever.
You do, I think one of the most important things is keeping going, isn't it?
And that's it.
Keeping up with your stuff, and you're walking and you're cycling.
Like you were on about before, just after the heart attack, I was stuck at home. I couldn't do much. I couldn't drive for the first couple of weeks. So I just sat at home doing nothing, and that bores me to tears. It's unbelievably boring just sitting there trying to do. Some people love it, but not for me.
I know you've had a bit of a break from this, but how's your photography going now?
Yeah, it's going great. I've got a gig tonight. I'm doing Stiff Little Fingers tonight, and then Madness at Haydock Park Racecourse on Saturday night. Hoping to do Blue Dot Festival next weekend. I haven't had confirmation of that one yet, but Bjork's playing there, and I'd love to photograph it there. So yeah, I'm starting to build up the gig photography even more. It'd be interesting to see how I get on.
Safe as well, though, isn't it? Because you're doing those. At least you're around a load of other people.
I've done a couple of gigs since, and as you know, we met at Africa, and that was what, a week and a bit after my heart attack.
You were doing better than me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't walk us round as much, and I enjoyed it. I think because I wasn't covering it for a magazine, so I didn't have.
I think
to
I was the same. I enjoyed it because I.
Which
I could go
you
when
do
I wanted
after
to.
Cardiff
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the best festivals around, in my opinion.
I think it wins it every year, doesn't it? Best UK festival for family.
And it's totally free.
Yeah.
What the hell?
What camera system do you use now and why?
I use Nikon now, surprisingly enough. Gone back to Nikon. Nothing against Fujifilm. I loved using Fujifilm for doing gigs. X-T3 was an amazing camera, as the X-T2 and X-T1 was. But I think it was during lockdown. I was again sat at home not doing anything, and I think I was overthinking things. I feel like a change. I feel like going back to digital DSLRs, calling them old school. That's ridiculous, isn't it? But I loved using the Nikons, and I did good things. I did a lot of gig photographers are using the D750s, which are reasonably cheapish cameras. They're not overly expensive, and I thought I'll go back to using DSLR. So I just bought one D750, and I think it was the 24 to 70 2.8 zoom, and I just loved using it again. So I bought another one, and with the 7200 2.8. So I'm using Nikons now, although I still have got a few Fujis at home. I've still got the X100T, I think it is, and I think I've got an XT1 knocking about somewhere. Not too sure where.
It's quite funny because I know a lot of people have. Some people have drifted back to their brands that they were using before or after they bought Fujifilm. It's a funny thing because once I retired, I always said I was going to get a Leica, and I didn't because I just think to myself, I'm not paying $6,000 for that. And then with this much money for a lens of something I'm hardly ever going to use anymore, because obviously going from professional to retired, then there's no need to take any photographs anymore. But one of the things I looked at Canon for a while, I looked at Nikon, and I thought, do you know, I'm quite happy with what I've got, and I don't take photographs for a living. And then when I came to do Africa Rodeo, it was probably one of the first times I've actually given a camera a workout for the day, and I thought, God, these two the X Pro 2 and the X Pro 3 work really, really well actually.
Yeah, brilliant cameras.
I think it's about sometimes what I don't like, people that jump brands every 5 minutes because they're keeping up with the Joneses on the internet. Completely stupid. But I think you have got to have a tool to do a job, and if that tool makes you feel comfortable when you're out doing your craft, then that's the one you need. It doesn't matter who makes it.
It's exactly what I was going to say. To me, a camera is just a light box. That's all it is. Me 20 years ago would have been wanting the latest camera. 20, maybe 25 years ago would have been wanting the latest Nikon, the latest Fujifilm, the latest Sony, whatever brand you use. I would have wanted the latest one because me 20 years ago would have thought, well, that's going to improve my photography. It's not. It's not going to improve your photography at all. It depends from what baseline you start at, what you know about
I think social media created, it's great for people that are selling stuff.
Yeah.
I think social media created a monster that you have to learn to walk away from. And one of the things social media did, and we come back from the film days, and one of the things I noticed is, if you see a great photograph on Flickr or something else where you can see what the EXIF says, and then you see all the competition photographs and you can see what the EXIF says, suddenly you think, hang on a minute, all these great photographs that won all this competition are taken with Nikons.
Yeah.
So that must help me make my photography better.
That's
so then you think, well, I will get that camera, and then when you actually get it, you think, this is shit for what I do.
That's the problem. That is one of the main problems nowadays. You know as well as I do, when we first started, even when we were teenagers and we were first starting dabbling in photography, the only way you could get to have a good close look at a camera was to go into a camera shop, handle it, ask questions of the person behind, and they may know less than you. But nowadays, a new camera comes out, it's plastered all over the internet, all the information's there. How great!
I think we used to buy in different ways, didn't we? So you would, even when I was younger, you'd want to buy something that was going to last you years.
Yes.
Nikon FM2. So I think I probably saved up for 3 years to buy that camera, and then I think I've told you this story. I bought the camera, got it home, and I'd put it on them straps. You know, the strange way they go on the straps when you first putting it on, and I got to the top of my stairs, and it fell off the strap and went all the way down my stairs to the bottom. Right. and I went down the stairs thinking, oh my God, I've saved up all this time, this camera's never going to work. And of course, back in them days, the Nikon FM2 is like a bulletproof.
Yeah, they were brilliant.
And I even ran that camera over in my car. I loaded my car one day and I left my camera bag behind my car and I ran over the bag. And when I actually got the camera out of the bag, there was still nothing wrong with it. And I thought, that's a really good camera.
Yeah.
And it lasted me like years and years and years. And it was, you know, you learn your skill that way, don't you? But these days, like you say, you think you've got a really good camera and then someone's telling you your camera's obsolete and useless and old.
It's not.
And then you need to go and buy this new Canon and this new thing.
It's
not, is it? It's
I did, funny story, you were talking about the FM2 cameras. I started with Cheshire Police, but then I moved to Gloucestershire Police. And I worked in Gloucestershire Police for 8-9 years maybe, I think. But I went to a job once. It was a photographic job. I think it was just an injury job. Someone had been beaten up or something. I took his photographs, got back in the van, drove all the way back to Cheltenham Police Station, and people were pointing at me as I was driving home. And I was thinking, what are they pointing at? I must realise it's a police vehicle. They were unmarked in those days. And I parked up in the car park, got out of the van, and there's my FM2 on top of the van, still there. I think I must have drove about 5 miles with it on top of the van.
So there it was. No.
Well, if it fell off, it'd have been all right.
Yeah, exactly. I know you look at. It's quite interesting because you look at retirement different to me, which is a really good thing for this. And that is, what advice would you give anyone who is planning to retire?
The advice that I said before: we don't look at retirement as an end of anything. Look at it as a beginning for something else, maybe. I think retirement. A lot of people think, well, that's the end now. You've got to plan for what you want to do. I plan to just carry on doing what I'm doing now. So I plan to be still. Probably I'll have people wheeling me into press pits at festivals on a wheelchair or something like that, maybe. But I just plan to carry on doing that and just enjoy what you're doing. That's the main thing. I think that's why I as you know, when you first start photography, you start thinking, oh, I'll do weddings, I'll do portraits, I'll do this, I'll do that. I didn't even think about music photography, and yet music has been a big part of my life. And then when I started doing it, I thought, this is what I want to do. I love music, I love photography. Why not doing both? So you've got to enjoy yourself.
I think one of the funny things about that is I've only just Jane's got it all to come next year, but one of the things I've sort of struggled with without realising it, obviously, is stopping work, and because I had so much work and I was travelling everywhere. I think that was quite a shock. But Jane said it the other day, she goes, you're a teenager again, trying to work out what hobby you want to do.
Yeah.
And because I was so active in everything else, I've done powerlifting, I played roller hockey for Kent, I swam for Kent. I've always been reasonably active. And then I've got the bike and everything else, which I walk more than I use my bike. Yeah. Not for any reason except it's bloody awful around this area of Liverpool to get anywhere on your bike safely. But I paint a bit, and then I'm just about to start clay pigeon shooting and things like that. And so I've jumped from one to the other. And the other day I thought, I've got all these bloody paints, and like it's not really doing it for me at the moment. And I thought, well, it wouldn't, would it? I'm 60 next year, so I've got the paints, but I enjoy my walking more, and I'll probably do my clay pigeon shooting, and I'll probably ride my bike, and obviously I like going away. But then I've got the paints now, so when I'm 70, 80, when I'm not going out so much and being so, at least I can sit down and just paint.
I always look at it this way. I do things that when I'm on the way to do them, it gives me a buzz. So I still get even I did a little sort of festival down at one of my local venues, the Snig in Widnes. The other day it was a punk festival. And even though it's not like going to going to watch, a massive big act like the Rolling Stones or Elton John or whoever, I'm still getting that buzz when I'm on the way there. Exactly the same as what I would if it was a massive artist. Same as when I'm driving out to play around a golf. I think, well, is this going to be a good round? It's usually a bad one. But is this going to be a good round? Am I going to break 90 or whatever? I still get that buzz, which I did do when I was playing as a teenager, because I used to play an awful lot of golf when I was a teenager. Got down to a single handicap player, but that's what you've got to do. You've got to find
the same thing. So that's why I'm thinking about when I used to shoot before. Back in them days when there weren't even decent clay traps, I was getting like 40s out and 50s, and 80s out of 100. And these days, with electronic traps and everything else, I know the traps are more reliable. So I'm hoping to get back into clay shooting, and if I can get back to the same, you lose it a bit with age. If I can get back to a reasonable standard, I'll definitely get a buzz about doing that again.
That's what I want to do with golf. I want to get back to a reasonable standard where I can not lose.
You're competing against yourself, but you're competing against other people as well, which is
that's it. Yeah, exactly.
If you could go back to your younger self and give your younger self some advice about life, what age would you go back to, and what advice would you give?
That's a very good question. I would probably go back to maybe not my teens, but early 20s. And I would probably, in my early 20s, I bought my first house probably. Got married, I was married by 23. And bought my first house. So I would probably, I would want to go back and then go back and tell myself, buy a house now, and then buy another house, and then buy another house.
Yeah.
Because you were buying houses for buttons in those days, and they just shot up. And I know so many people that made so much money out of doing that. Not that I'm ruled by money, because I'm not. Money doesn't mean a thing to me, but it would make me that little bit more.
It gives you a cushion for later in life.
Exactly, yeah. So I think, probably invest in property. I would go back to me early 20s and say, buy a few houses, get as many mortgages as you can, buy a few houses, either rent them out or sell them on in a few years' time, because you will make an absolute fortune.
I think one of the interesting things is I did okay out of property. I think you know that, but I didn't take that advice to myself. I did it. I'll never forget one of the jobs I did when I was very young was I worked in Tesco's as a Saturday kid, and at the time then they were giving shares all that way back, and they were called 42p ordinary shares, and I finished work. I was in the pub with my mates. You know what I mean? I was going out, nightclubs and everything. That was what you do when you're 17, 16, 17.
That's all you think about. Really.
And I didn't buy many shares. I went back to Tesco's at one stage as well, as worked as a manager. But I didn't buy many shares. I got ones that were given to me, where it was a friend of mine from a teenager took the shares on offer and then spent all his wages every week buying the shares. And they were around 42p. Then he stayed working with Tesco's, became a manager, became a director. At 35 years old, when they matured at £8 something, right? He sold all his shares, left the job, and I can't remember, it was a ridiculous amount of money he made. But not only was he doing that, he was spending the bulk of his wages as well on property. And he was buying up terrace houses and this, that and the other, and then putting tenants in, this, that and the other. I can't remember, because I know he's moved to Australia now with a large sum of money, but you just don't realise it. I think Jane was saying the other day, one of her houses where she used to live here in Liverpool, she paid, I think it was 17,000 for it, and it's just sold for 490,000.
It's amazing. It's like, I remember, because my first job was a joiner. I'm a time served joiner. I absolutely hated the building trade though, but that's another story.
That's it,
but I got made redundant from that job, and I got redundancy pay. The first thing I did with that redundancy pay was went out to a camera shop and bought a Pentax LX because it was the camera I wanted. So I spent all my money on this pro camera, which I'd probably do again if it was that age and thinking that way. But
I'll spend a lot of money on bloody cameras, that's for sure. Can you recommend any books that you have found inspirational over your years?
I'm not a big book reader.
Okay.
I'm more of a. I did buy one of Don McCullum's when he had his exhibition.
Was that Unreasonable Behaviour?
No, it's the war one. It's full of war photographs. But I basically look at the photographs. I'm not a massive big reader. I think I've read 3 books in my life.
Well, I don't, because I'm dyslexic, so I listen to Audible books, so I get you.
Yeah, I should go on to Audible books.
I'll tell you a funny story is, Don McCullum's Unreasonable Behaviour is, I've read it.
I think you mentioned that to me last time.
Lee and Lee Glasgow or Matt Walkley got me a copy signed by Don McCullum, and I just listened to it on Audible, and it's the story of, it's his biography basically, and it's well worth a listen to or a read. It's how he's still alive, I just don't know.
Yeah.
But to see what he went through as a photographer in his life, and as a photographer his whole life, it's incredible. And to think that one of the things I learned from it was this: is everything you and I know that we've been told by everyone about war is completely wrong when you listen to his book from the man that was actually standing there with bullets flying around his head. And as a kid, I grew up and I used to think, this is why I recommend his book. As a kid, when I grew up, I watched, and same as you probably watched, kids in other countries like Biafra and that, all starving to death and everything else. And my brain says it's because of the famine, and because it wasn't. It's all because of war.
It is.
It's all because of things that have been done, and and his book explains that in some horrific detail. But
war is an awful thing. It's not just soldiers that get killed.
No.
And it's not just soldiers and people like that suffer.
It's like Ukraine.
They're like exactly the same. Yeah.
So that's about it.
That's cool.
It was quite a bit of a different chat from the normal retirement chat, which I quite liked. All that's left to do is, if you just want to open that,
I will do.
And read that question out.
I wonder what
and answer it
has been left for me. Let's see. What difference did Matt Hart have in your life?
Oh, bloody hell.
Jeez. How many pages are in here? Let's have a look. Do you want me to read out the answer?
Yeah.
That an absolutely big.
Yeah, if you just read out the answer and then afterwards just write your question for the next person.
Yeah, cool. Matt's been a big influence in my photography since the day we met when we were talking about buying that D200. He's got a positive attitude, but a firm positive attitude. and you know where you stand with you, Matt. You know exactly where you stand, which is the type of people I like.
Yeah.
Because there's no backstabbing. There's no you get
what you see is what you get.
What you see is what you get, which is what I prefer.
Yeah.
Because you know where you stand, which is what I was saying before. Photography wise, just an absolutely amazing bloke to learn from and to know as a photographer, because he passes on so much knowledge, which is what I like to think other photographers would do, having met Matt, which is certainly what I would never ever think of doing a talk like you. I did 2 talks at Hull International Photography Festival through Fujiholics, through Matt. I would never imagine of doing a talk to a number of people about my gig photography and stuff like that, and that's moved on to talking to photographic societies as well, which I enjoy doing. So I think, if anything, the difference you have made to me, Matt, would be confidence, and being able to portray how much you love photography. So that's what I would say.
Cool. That's a strange question. I'm glad. I'm not glad he asked it because it's embarrassing sitting here. But
nice one, Barry.
I think that the interesting thing about that is, I struggled when I did photography, especially early on, because I was dyslexic and everything else. So I fell into photography. I got help and assistance by some relatives, and then there was a lot of trying to find out things for myself in the early days. There probably was for you.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I remember from, I met a guy once who worked for the BBC, and I can't remember his name, and it's a shame I can't. And he said, the hardest thing about photography is no one wants to give you advice in photography. They keep it all to themselves.
Yeah.
But in filming and videography, you can't produce films without a sound man, an editor, a videographer, a this, or that, or the other. So people that make films, even small films, have to collaborate with all these people, and they all teach each other everything. Whereas photographers are quite selfish bastards and don't tell anyone anything. So I've always wanted to tell everyone how to do it, because one of the scary things I think a professional photographer thinks is, if you tell that guy over there all your details, he's going to get better than you and take your work. It's never going to happen.
That's crazy, isn't it?
No, because a lot of people don't listen to you. In all my years of teaching,
Yeah, they don't.
Hardly anyone listens
Yeah,
to you.
they don't.
You've talked to enough people, and they don't. They ask all the right questions,
Yeah.
but then they go away and don't produce the work.
I do think that's changing slightly now. I think that there's a lot more photographers now who are willing to share the knowledge and experience with others to try and help them up. Not that there's much of a ladder to climb now. It's totally changed now from the days.
I think
Film. It wasn't just taking a picture; it was developing and printing.
Yeah. There's the whole form of process to it,
which I think has helped us a lot in the digital age now.
I think one of the shames of everything. No, I don't. I'm a bit funny, really. So, pardon me. I use my phone a lot now, and I use Instagram or Lightroom mobile or something like that. Most of the time, Instagram, and some of the little tweaks you can do are absolutely amazing. You don't even have to do any hard work. And I've always wanted to do minimum editing because I hate editing. But I think one of the processes of different, from taking the photograph to processing can be done extremely quickly these days. Going back to our day, it used to be take the photograph, have 6 or 7 rolls of film, then go back, develop the film, print, everything else. It's these days everyone wants quick, and the quickest way is with a smartphone. Yeah. Click, done.
Yeah. Straight onto Facebook.
Straight onto Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah. It's instant now.
Yeah.
But that instancy, is that a word? Instancy.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to detract from taking a good picture.
No, exactly.
You can still take a great picture as long as you've got your composition and stuff like that right. So perhaps in some ways it's a good thing. Perhaps in some ways it's a bad thing. But yeah, it's still photography at the end of the day. And it's what we love.
Before you do that, just wanted to say one thing. On the 30th of July, we've got a photo walk in Liverpool. We're meeting in Sefton Park. Warren's coming.
I'll be there.
We're meeting in Sefton Park by the main cafe in the middle, by the statue of Eros. I know there's a few people coming from Blackpool and a couple of people coming from London. I don't know how many people are going to be there because I used to do it all online and people used to get a ticket and come. So I don't know how many people are going. It's only going to be a roughly 5-mile walk. I'm going to go very slow for Warren. No, we're going to do a 5-mile walk. We're going to walk roughly from Sefton Park, a sort of route through the woods, down by the river. We're going to lose some people in the woods, throw some people in the Mersey, and then we're going to come up to Lark Lane and have some beers and some coffees. So if you're not doing anything on the 30th, come along to our photo walk. If you'd like to write your question,
I shall write my question in here now.